Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen tattoo artist hid her initials in my tattoo. After that, not allowed a day off unless you're sick? Fine, I'm sick. And after that, please leave the cops out of it. Okay, another pop story. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to tattoo her initials onto anyone else. Joke's on you, Reddit boy. I already have. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen tattoo artist hid her initials in my tattoo. I went to a tattoo shop in my area with a photo of the tattoo I wanted. It was one my dad had gotten to honor my past grandfather, whose father also had it. But the point is, it was important to me that the tattoo looked exactly as it did in the photo. I get to the shop, I explain everything. I pay, get the tattoo, and we're done. I think it looks awesome. Everything is great. Until a few weeks later when I show my great-grandmother the tattoo. She's static, grabs my arm to look at it and compliment it, then asks, "Who's AJ?" I ask her what she means, and she points out that my tattoo has the initials A and J, or maybe T, and they were hidden in the tattoo. I'm instantly upset, as my artist's name is Alice Trevor. She tries to assure me it's no big deal if I hadn't noticed it until now, but I still reached out to the artist sort of irritated. They told me the style of art I got is called traditional, and it's pretty traditional for all artists who do that style to do it. I demanded a partial refund and they refused, so I complained to the owner who made the artist give me a full refund. Now the artist is running a full smear campaign, talking about moving shops and all kinds of crap. My sister says I'm the jerk for pushing the issue, but I feel like, at the end of the day, I told you exactly what I wanted, and you didn't do that. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and I would even consider suing. They kind of branded you with their initials, and they should get fired. The artist had no right to hide their initials on your skin without your consent. I would be highly upset if it was done to me. Especially since it sounds like OP told the artist it needs to be exact, and they still put their initials in anyway. You get permission before you do something that's permanent. After all, who wants a random person's initials in their tattoo? Normally, you get a stencil put on first, which you approve, so potentially the initials were in the stencil and OP didn't notice or the artist free-handed it. Crappy move for definite. If someone asks about my tattoos, I always give the artist's name, even if I wasn't asked. Or, you don't need to put your signature on me. Edit. I should say, I'm not condoning this at all. It's a horrible thing for an artist to do. I'm just providing some extra context and perspective. It doesn't matter whether or not it was on the stencil, honestly. It's like the surgeon who was branding his initials on organs. Nobody can see it, but it still doesn't really matter. They didn't give permission, and the fact you concealed it suggests you know they wouldn't have given permission. I sincerely doubt, but it was on the stencil, will hold up in court. It's just a straight-up psychopathic power play. Nothing more. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the tattoo artist? Please let us know. You should show them the K I tattooed on you when you were asleep, Red boy. Not allowed a day off until you're sick? Fine, I'm sick. I worked for a grocery store in Australia for close to a decade. It wasn't terrible, and management treated us with respect for my first few years there. If someone couldn't make a shift, they'd work with us to find a replacement. We were rarely short-staffed, so worst case scenario, things would still run relatively smoothly, even if we were missing a few on a given day. Fast forward a few years. The good manager retires, and an assistant manager from a nearby store is promoted to managing this store. Let's call him Brad for the sake of this story. Brad approached the position with an ego, treating the store as his to fix, even though things had been running quite smoothly for years before he was in the picture. Part of his vision of fixing the store was stricter adherence to company-wide guidelines in terms of staffing numbers and leave requests. For example, the amount of staff to be rostered on is determined by the number of customers through our doors each day. Staff who were actually experienced at this location knew we needed more than what the company guidelines specified to be able to function effectively. Within the first month of Brad's tenure at this store, hours are being cut dramatically across the store, causing chaos as nobody was used to the added workload. When confronted about this by other members of management, he immediately dismisses them, quoting company guidelines. During the same period of time, staff began to notice that any request for leave was being instantly denied by Brad. Now, the company guideline is to give at least 2 weeks' notice if you know you'll need a day off. But it goes without saying, sometimes friends or family will make last-minute plans you'd like to attend, or you can't work a shift due to compassionate reasons. Prior to Brad, if you needed some time off, it was as simple as honestly communicating your situation with our manager. Almost always, we're able to come up with a solution, and taking a day off was never a big deal. Keep in mind, these guidelines are just that, guidelines, not strict rules that must be enforced. Store managers are given a rather loose collar from higher management. As long as things are running smoothly and staff are happy, upper management will usually take a rather hands-off approach. They won't micromanage each individual store, ensuring every little corporate guideline is being adhered to, unless there are obvious issues requiring their attention. So now Brad's about a month into his position. We are short-staffed throughout the store. Everyone is stressed. Requests for leave are being denied due to the lack of staff that Brad caused in the first place. Brad quotes company policy each and every time he does this. He won't even allow us to organize someone else to cover shift as it's too much paperwork. It's a Saturday and I'm due to work my regular shift that same night. I get a call from a friend with a spare ticket to see my favorite artist's sold-out show. I want to go, and I've spoken to a colleague who's willing to cover my shift, so I'm not doing over my team. I call the store and I speak to Brad, tell him the situation and that I have someone to cover said shift. Brad predictably gives me the same response that he's given everyone else. Sorry, as per grocery store X staffing policy, you must give 2 weeks notice for any time off. It doesn't matter if someone else is willing to take the shift. Cue malicious compliance. For a manager who's so into following rules, I was surprised to discover that he never took into account the grocery store's sick leave policy. Staff are entitled to paid sick leave for a day without the requirement of a doctor's note. So if you take 2 days or more off consecutively, then you need a medical certificate. I call back an hour after my initial call. This time I tell Brad that I've come down with the most terrible headache and that there is no way I can work that night. He doesn't even reply to me. I can faintly hear him angrily mumble that he'll have to call in a last-minute replacement before hanging up. It didn't take long for staff to catch on to this loophole. Staff needing time off with less than 2 weeks' notice would no longer bring it to their manager's attention immediately, instead opting to call in sick the day of each time. Obviously, this ensured further chaos in terms of lack of staff, a problem I never experienced in my near decade at the store. Brad quit after about a month and a half of being manager. Replacing him was the old assistant manager that had been at this location for several years at this point. It took a while to reverse the damage Brad had caused, but things got back to normal with someone who actually knew how to run the store at the helm. Please leave the cops out of it. Okay, another Pops story. I'm back once again with a story about my grandfather, Pops. Pops was a decent man. He was the kind of guy that would go out of his way to help someone without question. During the months between April and November, my little hometown would often get people just passing through waiting for a bus heading towards Alberta and British Columbia. Sometimes people down on their luck just trying to find a better life. Pops would often head into town, and if there was someone new, he would strike up a conversation to make sure they were okay. If they were down on their luck, Pops would offer them a hot meal and work for a few months so they could be sent off with some money. If they didn't want work and were going east, he would throw them $100 just to make sure they were good. This was just the kind of man he was. It only ever backfired one time. He offered a guy 2 months of work. Pop would send him off with a few thousand, this is back in the 70s, and 3 hot meals a day, and a warm bed to rest his head. Well, that arrangement worked well, and at the end of the 2 months, Pops handed him roughly $2,000. The guy had possible work out east, so a fine start for a new life. The guy was going to stay for a week and get the bus out to Alberta. Well, a few days before he was due to leave, Pops had been out in town and comes back to find his home ransacked. Guy tore through everything. One thing about Pops, he lived through the Great Depression, so he always had a backup if crap hit the fan. Pops had at least 40 1-ounce gold coins hidden in the house at all times. The guy got his coins and legged it out of town. The bus came once a week on a Saturday. Pops was so upset. Pops was good to this guy, gave him work and food money. Well, Pops jumped in his truck, right to town, got his brother and a weapon. So Pops and his brother took off down to the diner near the entrance of town and asked if they had seen the guy go past. Sure enough, someone had spotted him legging it down the highway. Well, Pops and his brother managed to catch up to him and told the guy to drop his stuff and a long speech about his betrayal. Pops got his stuff back and Pops said to the guy, "Don't worry, you ain't getting hurt, but you're going right to the law." The guy just begs and pleaded to not get the police involved. At that, Pop's brother says something into Pop's ear, and Pop smiles, looks over to the guy, and says, "Okay, we're going to let it go. No law. You're free to go." So the guy thinks he's in the clear and is getting ready to take off. Well, Pop said, Hey, we said no law. Don't mean you get off scot-free." Pops took everything besides his boots. They took his bag, his wallet, every bit of clothing he had. They complied no law. Oh, and don't worry, Pops didn't keep his crap. Pops told him there's no hard feelings. You can even have all your stuff back. It's all going to be waiting for you at the pub back in town. And that's exactly what happened. Pops went to the pub, had a few drinks. It took several hours, but eventually the guy made it to the pub, head hanging in shame. And from what Pops said, more than one person came out of their houses to point and laugh. The pub was packed. Word gets out quickly in a small town. Well, the guy got his crap and asked if he could stay in town. They ran him right out of town, made him walk the 8-hour walk to the next town. He got back all his crap, his money and clothing, as Pop said the guy was a crook, but he did the work. Am I the jerk for not acting happy when I found out my wife was pregnant? Okay, so I, male 28, have been married to my wife, Caroline, female 28, for a year. Everything has been going relatively smoothly. We're doing well and are generally on the same page about our plans. We both do very well for ourselves financially, and we have a solid amount saved so far. Last week, Caroline came to me and she told me that she was pregnant. I had so many emotions in the moment. 1. I was scared about whether we were financially and emotionally ready to raise a baby. 2. I was kind of happy, obviously. I'm going to be a dad. 3. I was concerned about what this was going to do for our future plans education-wise, since we're both planning on going to graduate school soon. In the moment, I kinda acted more shocked than happy. I started asking a lot of questions and asked her what her plans were and what were the next steps she wanted to take. I was literally shaking in the moment. I kept prodding and asking questions, and after a few minutes of this, she told me she expected me to be happy for us and walked out of the room. I want to be excited, but at the same time, I'm literally getting pounded with like 10 different emotions at the same time. Her mom called me and said I should just put it aside and act happy, and I told her straight up I'm freaking out. She started telling me that I'm acting immature and that I'm being a bad husband. I feel so terrible, but I also think it's natural to not have to act happy. Am I the jerk? Okay, I just want to clarify. I'm not a jerk like people are trying to make it seem. I mentioned asking about her career plans more from a financial standpoint. I want to be able to provide for our kid, and I wanted to know if she plans to work. It was obviously a stupid question in the moment, but I was nervous. Edit. Big update here. She was in the kitchen getting some water, and I just straight up walked up to her and hugged her. I told her I'm happy and that I want to do this together. I told her how much this means to me and that I'm 28, have my degree, have a stable job. I included this to reinforce we're stable enough to do this, and that I'm completely ready to commit to being a dad, and that I believe that she's ready to be a great mom too. She was emotional. Honestly felt like a movie scene, and it all just took 5 minutes. I filled up her cup with water and told her to relax. She's sleeping now, but I feel better. I'm happy, but I'm still nervous about everything. What her plans are? Way to make her feel in it alone. The moment your wife tells you she's pregnant isn't the moment to drill down into her detailed strategy for child rearing. You're the jerk. A gentle you're the jerk. I understand you were shocked, but if your account of the conversation is accurate, your wife probably felt like you were blaming her. You asked her what her plans were and what were the next steps she wanted to take. You both made this baby. It's about our plans and what we want to do, not her. Just remember, you're on the same team for future conversations, and hopefully they'll go a bit better than this one. Congratulations. Not the jerk. You bring up legitimate, practical concerns on the matter. But your wife's not wrong to be disappointed by your reaction. She's probably having similar concerns, and a little bit of support might have been more appropriate in the moment. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for the way he reacted or not? Please let us know. Financial plans can kind of go out the window once a baby arrives. Good luck, OP. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my niece's contact lens? My sister came to me and asked for $700 for my niece last year to have contact lenses for a year. They had financial difficulties, and my niece really wanted them, but they couldn't afford them. I'm not rich, but I haven't visited them in years due to living in another country, so I've missed a few Christmases, so I agreed. I would cover her optometrist visit and contacts for the year. I sent her the money via e-transfer, expecting her to do all the legwork to get the contacts. Fast forward a few weeks. I was asking if she likes them, the contacts. She confirmed she does and doesn't elaborate. Finally, with travel restrictions lifting, I went to visit my family and friends. My sister lives in another city than everyone else, and it was a last-minute trip, so I didn't really warn her because I wasn't sure I could visit her. I couldn't get a hold of her, so I called her husband, who confirmed they were home. One of my friends canceled, so I rented a car and drove to the next state. She greeted me, but didn't want me to go inside. I was so confused, but luckily her husband saw me too and welcomed me in. I met the kids, their new dog, and saw my niece still had glasses on, and asked if she gave up on the contacts because they were scratchy and drying. She looked at me like I had 3 heads and said that she never got contacts. My sister was looking very uncomfortable, and I was so confused, saying I sent some money so she could get contacts. Her husband looked at her and me for a minute before asking the kids to go up to their room. Turns out my sister used the money to bring home a dog she wanted during lockdown. She told her husband she found the dog and it was probably a runaway with no collar and chip, but in reality she paid for it. I was upset I got duped into giving her money for a dog they shouldn't have had, according to her husband, because they were having trouble covering the vet bills, but knowing she also paid for the dog with my money caused them to get into a fight in front of me. I walked out and was upset, but finished my trip. My sister called me a month ago to ask me for more money to pay for my niece's contacts for real this time, but I'm out of goodwill and told her to save up for it, and she started crying, saying her husband is blaming her for wasting the money and she wanted to make it right by buying the contacts now. I told her to pick up some waitressing shifts to cover the cost. She was a waitress, now a stay-at-home mom, and she yelled at me for being the jerk for not being willing to pay for the contacts. Not the jerk. If her husband is upset with her wasting the money, hopefully he's a good enough person that he would be upset with her hassling her last victim to have a do-over. Let him know that she's trying to solve her marital problems by mooching even more off of you, and that you've lost your goodwill, and hope he understands that you won't be comfortable donating to either of them. Not the jerk. I'm floored by the audacity here. Tell her you already paid for the contacts and won't be doing it again, and from here on out, I wouldn't buy or send anything to your niece unless she's with you. Not the jerk. You know the old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You owe your sister nothing. She owes you $700 and an apology for using the money other than what she told you for. She also owes her niece an apology if she made any promises about getting her contacts. Am I the jerk for not being as excited about my younger sister's dog adoption as I was about my older sister's new kid? I'm 32 years old, male, and I live across the country from the rest of my family. My older sister, Nina, is 36, and my younger sister, Jen, is 25. Last month, Nina gave birth to her first kid. When she went into labor, I booked the first ticket across the country to meet her new son. I took a week off work and spent the entire time helping her out where I could, catching up with family and looking for any excuse to hold her new baby. During this time, Jen was becoming visibly frustrated with the attention the baby was getting, and she went full passive-aggressive mode on me for the last few days of the trip. On the last day, I gave Nina $5,000 for the baby to use as she wishes. I know her and her husband aren't in the greatest situation financially, and she would never ask me for money, but I was happy to give it to her. A week later, I suddenly get a message directing me to Jen's Twitter. I ignored it at first because I don't use Twitter. Then I got a Skype message from her with a picture of a new puppy. I told her the dog was super cute and asked where she got it. Apparently, she had saved it from a local pound. I congratulated her on her new dog and figured that was that. During the next week, Jen kept getting more and more persistent about when I would visit again to see her new dog. I told her I wouldn't be doing so, and so Jen linked me to her Amazon wishlist for new dog necessities. Since she doesn't work, it's not really any surprise that she would ask for someone to buy her things for her dog. I ignored it. Finally, Jen snapped and sent me a really long message about how much attention I gave to Nina for getting pregnant. how her dog means just as much to her as Nina's baby, and how I was such a jerk to give Nina $1,000. Apparently, word got to her that I gave Nina money, but luckily she misunderstood and thought it was only $1,000. Thank goodness for that. Jen is still refusing to talk to me, and our mother even says the least I could do is buy her a leash, but I don't want to encourage her behavior any further. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. If you need an Amazon wish list for your dog, you shouldn't be getting a dog. I'm sorry, but your younger sister is an entitled and spoiled brat. Tell her that it's a big difference between one becoming an uncle for the first time and someone else getting a dog, that they quite frankly shouldn't be having if they don't have an income. Tell her that you will by no means fly across the country just to see a puppy because it's not comparable. Also, I'm child-free by choice, and I have 2 cats. My sister has a toddler. And no way do I think our parents should be giving my cats the same money and attention as they give to my niece. That's just ridiculous to say the least. Am I the jerk for not allowing my girlfriend's sister to move in and changing the locks? So, a really messy situation. I, 27 male, have been dating my girlfriend, Ashton, 26 female, for 2 years, and we live in the house that I own. Ashton's finishing up her master's program, so I don't charge her rent. I pay for all the housing expenses, and in return, she chips in on groceries, utilities, and some of the household chores. But I pay the lion's share of all household expenses. I'm cool with this situation till she graduates, and we have always communicated well until now. Ashton has a hot mess of a sister named Anna, who's 28. Anna has burned most of her bridges with her family. She has 2 kids by 2 different dads, been married and divorced twice, hops from one sketchy boyfriend to another, always in and out of work, always complaining about her situation instead of actually doing anything to solve it. I gave up on her last year when she dated this loser who obviously didn't like kids, and she kept dating him against me and her sister's advice. Well, she moved into his place, and this Saturday we got a call that they were breaking up and she had nowhere to go this time. She hadn't been working and didn't have rent money. Ashton asked me if we could take them in. I said absolutely not. Her sister was a leech. Also, that I didn't want kids in my house. I work from home half the time and don't want 3 extra people in my space. Also, I don't want to get involved with her sister at all. I've supported her plenty over the last few years. Rides, babysitting, etc., and I'm done. My girlfriend didn't take this well and said she would help her sister if she could. I said fine, let me know where you take her and I'll bring by some food, but it won't be my house. My girlfriend tried saying it was her house too. I said when she started paying the mortgage, she can decide who lives here. So her sister tried calling me individually. I told her the same reasons, and I told her I'd bring food by when she finds a place. I also gave her the number of multiple organizations that could help her. She got offended. Well, I was at work yesterday, sales, and I noticed on my Ring camera, Anna and her kids were unlocking my front door with a bag on her shoulder. I called my girlfriend and asked her immediately what was going on. She said Anna needed a place to go for a few hours while her ex moved out of the apartment. I asked how she got in the house as I locked it. Ashton said she made Anna a key months ago in case she ever needed to get in. I was furious and told her to tell Anna to get out or I'd be calling the police. Ashton called and Anna left, not before calling me a jerk. So I decided today to change the locks and get a new garage access code. Ashton will have to request access through the garage and I will give access. Ashton is upset, but I told her that this is going to be the way it is until her sister finds a place, because I can't trust I won't come home and find 2 kids and a woman living in my house. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. And in my opinion, you need to think seriously about your relationship with Ashton. The fact that she went behind your back is a major red flag. I wouldn't make any rash decisions, but she's violated his trust in a big way here. Forgiving this once or twice is acceptable, but beyond that, it's game over. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Her and her sister both sound like parasites, bruh. You should really dump her. Am I the jerk for getting back into my car and driving home when my mom told me what her emergency was? I'm 22, male. My dad left my mom 4 years ago. He said he was waiting for me to be in college to finally be over with her. This might sound bad, but my mother is horrible and she totally deserved it. She treated my dad, and pretty much everyone around her, like crap for most of my childhood and teenage years. Her sisters cut her off. She doesn't have any friends, and my older sister, who's 26, abandoned her. But silly me still have some soft spot for her because she's my mother and she's utterly alone. So I still visit her some weekends, drive her around, get her groceries, and fix things around the house. I try my best to have pretty much every Saturday or Sunday totally free just for her, but sometimes I just can't. I have classes from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and I have a part-time job from 4 to 12, so sometimes I end the day totally demolished. My mom knows that there will be some weekends that I won't be able to go visit her, and while sometimes she understands that, she's totally demanding that I have to be there whenever she needs me because I owe her. She would rather go a week with only takeout and limit products than walking 2 blocks down her house to a small convenience store to get them herself. This last 3 weeks have been rough. I have a huge pile of homework and projects that I have to finish before May. My job has been an absolute nightmare, and I've been having problems with my roommate, but I would rather live like this than moving back to my mom and becoming her live-in maid that has to do everything for her. Last Friday, I was driving back home around 3:30. It was my day off, so I was planning on sleeping all day. My mom called me and asked me to come home ASAP. I asked what was happening, and she said she needed something. I said that my week has been pretty bad and that I would rather just go to my place and rest. She promised it was an emergency, so I said, "Okay, I'm on my way." When I arrived and asked what happened, she said that she needed some milk, bread, toilet paper, and cigarettes. I said, "What? You said it was an emergency." And she said, "It is an emergency. I also need some stuff for the bathroom. You know what? Let me write it down." So when she got inside the house, I just hopped back into my car and left. She called a few times, but I didn't answer, and when I got to my house, I turned my phone off and went to sleep. I woke up around midnight, turned my phone on, and I had a bunch of missed messages from my mom and some relatives, and they called me a jerk because I was already there, and that it was rude of me to leave my mother like that. So I don't know. Am I the jerk? Entitled parent demands a free painting and flips out when I refuse. Okay, so for a little context, I am a high school student in my junior year, and I've won various awards for my oil paintings. Some of my works are displayed in local galleries as well, and I take commissions which vary in price depending on the type of painting they want. Most of my patrons request biblical paintings, since I am best at painting in a Renaissance Baroque style, and I love to paint scenes with lots of movement. That being said, I also paint a lot of portraits of families, local politicians, etc. Basically, if you pay me, I will paint anything. This all happened before all the craziness started, and I was displaying some of my work at my school's art fair. Basically, the district rented a huge auditorium where various schools would display their best work and then auction it off for charity. It was a fun event, and a surprising amount of people showed up. Now, here's where it starts. I had about 5 or 6 paintings on display. Most of them were depictions of Greek myths/stories, with a few exceptions being a painting of Jesus' crucifixion and a painting of my girlfriend as a goddess, which she is. I had some business cards that my dad had gotten for me, which had some of my info just in case people wanted to commission me, along with a pamphlet of my prices and such. In comes the entitled parent with her baby in a carrying thingy. I don't know what they're called. They look like baskets. I'm sure you've seen one before. I must say, the baby looked pretty new. Their face was all swollen and they looked pretty small. Why would she bring a newborn baby to a crowded area with lots of noise? I don't know. But hey, I'm not a baby expert. She grabbed a business card and examined it, then looked back at my paintings. Entitled parent. "Hey, these are pretty good. Obviously nowhere near as good as the old masters, but a pretty close second, I guess. Though for a 16-year-old, they're pretty good." Me. "Oh, thanks, I guess. I've been painting for a pretty long time, and I'm glad that people enjoy my stuff. I appreciate the compliment." "Oh, I see you do commissions. How much for one of me and my baby?" Me. "Well, it depends what you want. What did you have in mind?" "Maybe us laying in a field or something. I don't know, something cute." Me. "Oh, I can do that. What size did you have in mind?" Entitled parent points to the Jesus painting, which was 16 by 20, so a standard medium-ish painting. Me. "Okay, well, for 2 people, normally it would be about $200, but since your baby is not a grown adult, I can make it $125. "What? That's ridiculous. Why are you charging so much for a painting anyways?" Me. "Well, usually a painting that size takes me about 20 hours at least, and the paint that I use is pretty expensive too, not counting the canvas or paint mediums that can be pretty pricey too." "I don't care about that stuff. Why can't you just do it for free, huh? I am a single mother, and I really want this painting done." At this point, I am floored. She's asking for 20 plus hours of work for free. when I have school on top of it? Me. Sorry, I don't think I can do that for you. It's just not worth my time. I have school to balance as well. I am a single mother, and you are telling me to pay $100 for this trash? Do you have no heart? I have to work so hard to provide for my daughter. I can't believe that you could be so heartless. At this point, she's yelling at me pretty loudly. Her baby is surprisingly still sound asleep. The couple I was talking to earlier comes to my defense. The girl. If you work so hard, then you would understand that doing hours of work for no pay is not worth it. The guy. Yeah, if you work 20 hours and then didn't get your paycheck, you'd be pretty angry, huh? Entitled parent. That isn't the same thing. She is a high school student. She doesn't need the money. She can spare a few hours for me. Me. What? No, I can't. I am not giving you a painting for free. End of story. Either pay for it or leave. She gets red in the face at this point. She is seething in anger. You little jerk. I can't believe how rude you are. You don't even care that I work so hard. Me. You're right, I don't. Now if you aren't going to commission me, then can you please leave? You're making a scene when I have been nothing but nice to you. Fine, I will leave. She then walked up to one of my paintings and took it off the wall. Her baby wakes up and starts to cry, probably from all the noise. She begins to shush her baby and speed walks towards the exit, but not before a man, who I assume is a teacher or something, grabs her arm and attempts to take the painting back. She puts the baby carrier on the floor and attempts to wrestle it out of the guy's hands. They fumble for a while, yelling at each other while struggling with the painting. I should probably note at this point that the painting didn't have a frame or any protective glass over it. I probably should have done that, but it was too late. She ripped the painting out of his hand and smashed it against the floor like a hard rock singer in his guitar. Wood went flying everywhere. People were screaming at her. I was crying because I don't know how to handle my emotions. She turned back to me, sweaty and red. See what happens when you are a rude little jerk? Bad things. I hope you've learned your lesson. At this point, I didn't respond. I'm on the floor crying near my painting that I had put so much work into. The wood had pierced the canvas, and now there was a huge hole in the middle of the painting. Entitled parent gets dragged out of the venue as various teachers and other students try to comfort me. Eventually, I calm down a little and the event goes on. I did get about 5 commissions, so I guess it wasn't all bad. But I'm still furious about what happened. I'm just glad that I never get to see her again. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.